I'm Martha Scheeler with Team Hope, and I'm here to interview Laura Hobbs, who's running for Supervisor District 2, Shasta County.
Hi, Martha.
So what's new?
I'm having a little trouble, honestly. My signs keep getting stolen, and I think I'm up to 13 or 14. I'm sort of
13 signs being stolen, huh?
Yeah, but luckily I got a new shipment of signs in today.
You must be dangerous.
I think so.
Somebody's people are worried about you.
Yep.
Wonder who that is. Might be somebody that doesn't want to have a 4-1 majority on the board, huh?
Could well be. But I do want to let people know that I do intend to prosecute, and it's also a federal offense. So.
Okay. So you've reported it to the sheriff?
I haven't yet. I'm waiting to gather more evidence.
You have some evidence. You need more, so that means you have some. Yep.
So if anyone wants to donate to the campaign, those signs are quite expensive. Every dollar counts. I can't do this alone.
Right. So donate to votelaurahobbs.com. You go to your website. You can also find all of your interviews. You've done a lot.
Yep, there's quite a lot of content on there. All the debates that we've had with the different candidates for District 2, and also just access to my old Rumble videos where I go before the board, all of our old podcasts, as well as the current ones. So
right. So if you have the wherewithal to make a donation, $20, $100, whatever you can do, that's great. But if you don't have the wherewithal and you have Facebook or you have Signal, Telegram, Gab, Instagram, share Laura's content. Find the ones that make you the most happy and share them on your social media, because she's going to be suppressed. There are those that don't want her to be our supervisor. They don't care what the voters want. They care about power.
That's right. And that's part of what I want to do, is drain the local swamp. Word of mouth is very powerful. Use all the social media platforms that you have. Just talk to your neighbors. Call 10 friends that you know. Spread the word.
Right. I have a teammate, and she wears T-shirts that talk about integrity, that talk about Trump, and she wears them deliberately to the grocery store because she wants to start conversations with strangers. And I just love it. And she's actually quite accomplished. So she's somebody you want to talk to if you want to know what the truth is. And she actually shared with me something kind of cool. There's this guy named Matthew Bernhard. In 2020, he did a dissertation at the University of Michigan. The doctoral committee is chaired by Dr. J. Alex Halderman.
Oh, nice.
So isn't this interesting? So I think it's a 194-page report. So here's one of the things he said. Election outcomes are subject to influence from all participants, candidates, parties, voters, voting equipment vendors, election officials, and perhaps most saliently, in light of recent elections, outside adversaries. Because of this, election systems need a sophisticated way to provide strong evidence for their outcomes while also preserving anonymity. Essentially, elections that use computers need a way to guarantee that their outcomes have not been influenced by any of the actors involved. With computerized voting, the most essential weakness is undetected manipulation of the election results by malicious software. I developed software that can achieve exactly this type of manipulation by intercepting scanned images of ballots before they reach the tabulation software to change the votes reflected on them.
Wow, he intercepted them before they reached the tabulation center?
Right.
Can I bring that to our local level? Starting before the election day, the 30 days prior, they began scanning these ballots prior to election day. And they said, don't worry, we don't click tabulate. We don't send them to the central calculator. We're just scanning them.
Yeah, the question is, are they held in this county or not? So if the scanned images are not even staying in county, we have received no ballot images from any county in the state, and we have argued for them ferociously and have been told that we cannot have them. Why would they not want us to have those scanned ballot images?
Why wouldn't they?
Because they don't hold them, because they don't actually have them. They're being transmitted somewhere, but they're not connected to the internet. So how are they getting them to be held somewhere?
If you have nothing to hide, then you hide nothing.
Right.
So this arouses suspicion and mistrust in our election system if we can't actually see those images or get a hold of them. But they're saying, well, that's private information. We can't share that. But the fact is, when I went to be an election observer, they told me that any ballot which had writing on it was going to have to be adjudicated. So they would have to transfer it on to a duplicate ballot, because otherwise the machine would automatically reject it.
If there's any marks outside of the bubble, I was handed a Sharpie marker to vote with And they're like, oh, we moved the bubbles, so don't worry, it's not going to vote on another thing. Well, it's not that. But when it bleeds through, it leaves a mark on the ballot. What happens to that ballot? It is never scanned. We never would receive with those ballot images any personal information. We would only receive pictures of ballots that had marks in the bubbles. And so anything that's sent to adjudication, if you have your conservative precincts marking with what? A Sharpie marker, those ballots are all going to adjudication. That makes it open for somebody with nefarious purposes to recast their vote how they want it cast.
So don't vote with the Sharpie, folks. And I even recommend people to vote with a blue ink pen.
A ballpoint
On election day.
Right.
So bring your own pen with you.
Right.
When you go into the polling place.
Right. And I'm not an election expert. I don't even play one on TV.
Well, see, I would consider you and I to be probably more informed than most people on elections. But if you and I are still struggling to have these questions answered, imagine how much more so the general public is.
Right. They wonder why we have mistrust. The person who will lose their freedoms first is the person that they call a low information voter. Everything that is done in elections should be easily understood by them. It is unacceptable for the elections office to say, oh, you don't understand. Here, let me pat you in the head. You don't understand. I'll handle this for you. Let me read something to you. This is from that Bernhard PhD dissertation. Several factors make it difficult to generate convincing evidence that reported results are correct. The first is the trust model. No one is trusted. In any significant election, voters, election officials, and equipment and software cannot necessarily be trusted by anyone with a stake in the outcome. Voters, operators, system designers, manufacturers, and external parties are all potential adversaries. The need for evidence. Because officials and equipment may not be trustworthy, elections should be evidence-based. Any observer should be able to verify the reported results based on trustworthy evidence from the voting system. Many in-person voting systems fail to provide sufficient evidence, and as we shall see, the internet systems scarcely provide any at all. Another quote from him, an attacker can change the election outcome either with or without detection. In the case where ballot images are the source of truth for an election, simply modifying the images to the attacker's preferred outcome will be detected by the image audit and overturn the election result provided by the tabulation software. The actions to achieve this are a subset of the actions required to change the election outcome without detection. If this guy's writing this into his PhD dissertation, I think we should take him seriously.
Absolutely. But when I talk to regular people, I explain to them that we need to be able to have a system that's so transparent that anybody who looks at it can verify that it's true and correct and accurate.
Right. Describe this system to me.
Well, it needs to be a hand count system, hand tally, where anyone could, you and I could sit at the table together and decide and come to a consensus on, whether it was Joe Biden or Donald Trump that was marked on that ballot. So we both agree, ballot by ballot, complete transparency. Anyone with the simple math skills can verify that we've tallied it correctly and observe
it. Could be observed.
We don't have to be on the same political party either, and we can still come to a consensus.
Right, and I think we can agree. I think there's a lot of people from all the different places of politics. This isn't a political question. This is a question of, do we have a constitutional republic where our votes actually change how our government is conducted, our government business is conducted?
And it absolutely does change things. We need to know that the people we voted for are the ones in office.
Right.
They are our representatives.
Right.
They're representing us. They're our voice. They're our proxy. And if we can't have any guarantee that they were rightfully seated, then we're not a free people, basically.
Right.
We're slaves.
So San Luis Obispo and Riverside counties yesterday had citizens stand up and read some declarations. Would you like me to read some of what they read?
Sure.
The significance of America being a constitutional republic is that the Constitution is the supreme law of this land. Any purported law, statute, code, regulation, rule, or policy made consistently with the enumerated powers of the Constitution are presumed valid. In contrast, any purported law, statute, code, regulation, rule, mandate, or policy which opposes and/or violates the Constitution in any way whatsoever is unlawful, null, and void. No bureaucrat, politician, or person acting in an official governmental capacity has any legal authority to restrict the constitutional rights of any law-abiding citizen, nor alter the count of the citizens' vote. Are you aware in the federal and state laws there is something called racketeering influenced corrupt organizations, otherwise known as RICO? Are you aware that voters in this county generally, and me specifically, have been damaged by the collusion between Mr. Raffensperger, Secretary of State of Georgia, California Secretary of State Weber, and one or more registrar of voters concerning what we now know as a false narrative of the alleged integrity of the elections from November 2020 to present? I respectfully request you send a written response to me addressing each and every issue herein raised within 10 calendar days. If for any reason you fail to respond as requested to the issues below, your failure may well be regarded in any future legal, let me say that again, your failure may be regarded in any future legal or political proceeding as a tacit admission that the allegations are true and correct. Please see U.S. v. Tweel, quote, silence can only be equated with fraud where there is a legal and moral duty to speak, or where an inquiry left unanswered would be intentionally misleading. That's one of the things that was read.
This is what was read by the citizens of San Luis Obispo County to their Board of Supervisors.
And Riverside. This is from New California State.
Could you explain to our listeners who don't already know what New California is?
So New California State began in 2018 as a constitutional solution to a rogue government in California, the state of California, and it was in response to many things. But one of the things was that Governor Gavin Newsom declared that he wanted to exit the United States. He wanted to secede from the Union of States. And if you look up Cal Exit, you will see what he had planned. So essentially that was stated, and that's what we've been watching since then. The other thing he said is he said on record that he was no longer going to be bound by the Constitution of the United States of America. So a group of patriots got together and began reading grievances against our state government in 2018. I believe they've read over 200. And anybody that wants information, you can completely do your research right there on their website, newcaliforniastate.com. The difference between this and other movements is the other movements, they're talking about splitting the state and making it part of Idaho, or they are talking about seceding from California. New California State is not talking about seceding from California. They are talking about joining the Union of States as the citizens of New California State in order to save the state of California from itself. And the state can't save itself, but New California State is in a position to be part of the Union of States. So this is what they just read regarding elections. I think you'll find this helpful. The 2018 midterm elections, 2021 recall election, and the 2022 midterm elections were all lost in 1-to-1 balloting with the help of a fraudulent election system, an algorithm, and the actions of the globalist cartels and the CCP dictator was installed to oversee the province of California. Now, with the help of the federal courts in the state of Georgia and their unwitting corrupt Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, the evidence is clear for the world to see how the selected treasonous governor of the province of California and thousands of down-ballot corrupt selected officials turned the once great state of California into a Nazi communist totalitarian province. The election case pits an election integrity nonprofit and a handful of Georgia voters against the Secretary of State's office. They claim that the state's computerized voting machines face an unacceptable risk of being hacked, which infringes on the constitutional rights of voters.
Now, how is Raffensperger involved here in California?
Well, he shows up somewhere last year. Just shows up in Nevada and invites all of the registrars of voters from California to come and meet with him. And this belief is that they were getting it straight so that they all had the same story. There's a belief that he doesn't even know what Halderman had. Shortly after that, Alex Halderman hacks a machine in front of a judge in court, and it's on record that these machines are hackable.
So Raffensperger from Georgia is freaking out because now he's under fire, right?
He's the perfect call that President Trump, I believe, impeached over.
Yeah.
He had just met with True the Vote. If you go to Patriot Games on Rumble, there's a podcast where they explained how True the Vote went to Brad Raffensperger and told him that they had these dirty voter rolls, that they had these problems. And he admitted to them that people voted that shouldn't have voted, and it was large numbers. It would have determined the election. Then he got on the phone with President Trump and told him exactly the opposite. So in his official capacity as the Secretary of State of Georgia, a swing state, when President Trump was asking about those votes, he told them that the exact opposite of what he told True the Vote. And then he testified before Congress. Just remember, the last part of his name is perjure.
So he has been consulting with Kathy Allen. That's the presumption. She did attend a conference back in the beginning part of last year in Washington, D.C. From that, there was a bunch of people there. For some reason, everyone else there was like the Secretary of State. But here we had a county clerk from California. She's not the Secretary of State of California, Kathy Allen. She gave a speech, and that was all on YouTube.
And every single registrar of voters, and those who might be running against you, who might be involved in this type of activity, it would be good for them to consult an attorney at this point.
That brings us to, maybe we should talk about this here, is Suzanne Barrymore. She's not an elections official, but she spends a lot of time in that office. She's personal friends with Kathy Allen, and during key moments of our election process, she's there present, and she has access to backroom access. She's also a member of the Election Commission here in Shasta County. She's a commissioner. And she did make an announcement on Monday. She read Kathy Allen's retirement statement aloud, in which she cited, the stressfulness of the position and how the pressure she felt from the community. She went as far as to say that Kathy Allen was being hunted and pursued like a wounded animal.
That's really funny. She reported us to the FBI. She reported you. Everybody that's been at those meetings was reported to the FBI. It's so narcissistic, honestly. So interesting. Tucker Carlson just went to Russia, and he just disclosed that the federal government was looking at his signal communications and surveilling him.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's good guys that are doing some surveillance as well. I don't think you can delete what they already have. So those that are coordinating and colluding together. And the other thing is to consider yourself the victim. It's like the kid that runs to the teacher because the bully's picking on them, but they've been throwing rocks at the bully for like a week. It's all theater. And if you look at it, the Board of Supervisors meetings, the way that people behave in those meetings is theater. The knitting in the Board of Supervisors meeting, we're watching a movie here. Somebody else is the director of that movie, but people need to wake up to the fact that they're being manipulated.
Unfortunately, the way it works here locally is that Kathy Allen, she goes right away. She's got the ear of all the local media. She's calling them up and basically making false allegations and telling lies.
Right. She told them that the canvassers were intimidating voters when her employee's husband shouted down two little old ladies that weren't even 5'3", shouted at them, verbally assaulted them. But those little old ladies were intimidating voters because they had yellow vests on. I'm sure it was a yellow vest.
Yeah.
Don't you think that was it?
It's to the point where it's so brazen, the lies and the spinning, and, anybody who has any valid concerns about elections, they're automatically branded as an election denier or an extremist or a skeptic. And it's just a way of trying to discredit the truth behind what they're saying and try to confuse the public. And I hope one day they're held to account for that.
But the best thing to do would be to replace them with people who actually care about their constituents' freedom, who don't care about the power that they wield. That's what I like about you, Laura, is that you're not in this for the power. You care about the people of Shasta County. You care about the children of Igo who got a playground. Their community is decimated. People are selling their properties at a discount because it's burned up. Although I happen to think that it's a great time to keep your property because you have a fire break. Sadly, it was created by horribleness. But hang in there and fight for Igo, because Igo Ono is some of the most beautiful, rich land. It sits over Clear Creek. One of the largest gold strikes of the gold rush was Clear Creek.
I love that area. My family and I love to take hikes. There's so many trails in that area, all the way up Clear Creek. There's a whole preserve there, and it's beautiful. There's this one hike that we call the Shire. It's in Cloverdale Trail. I love the area. I think that we as citizens need to stay and fight. If there was wrongdoing, which I suspect there was, then we need to get to the bottom of it and press charges against those who broke the law. If we can, we should get that money back, and we should have that money available to citizens.
So she's actually an elected official. I mean, I don't know.
possibly selected. I looked at her election by analyzing the cast vote record data, and it shows the typical Mesa pattern of fraud, which is either a front loading of fraudulent votes for Stephanie Bridget or removal of valid Jensen votes, her opponent, Eric Jensen.
So had that election been run and not had that algorithm, Eric Jensen would be negotiating for the settlement with PG&E, and he could look out for those constituents. Am I right?
Yeah, if we could turn back the clock, potentially that would have been an outcome. I can't say to the extent the cheating took place. I can only say that it took place. How much it affected the outcome, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. It's uncertifiable.
Exactly.
Those elections are not certifiable,
Yeah.
and the Board of Supervisors could pass a resolution to decertify the elections.
Some of our board members that are currently seated, they won despite cheating against them. There's Mary Rickards saying, are you trying to say that the members who are seated on the board now weren't rightfully elected?
Let me just answer that question. Kevin Cry and Patrick Jones and Chris Kellstrom, they weren't elected. And my answer to that is by a lot more. But you didn't cheat enough to keep them from winning. That's what happened.
Exactly.
They won by more.
Yep.
They won by more.
By a lot more. So for March 5th, the election is coming up. We need to overwhelm the cheat by voting on election day and voting in mass. We need to get out, get your friends out, your aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, get everyone out to the polls to vote on election day if you can.
Absolutely. And vote no on the recall.
Vote no on the recall, yes on the charter county, and vote for Laura Hobbs too if you're in District 2.
And vote for Laura Hobbs. If the citizens do their job, show up and vote.
Yep.
Let Gavin Newsom know that we're not for sale. Shasta County is not for sale. Look at CalExit, and you can see what his hopes are for Shasta County. He wants to own this land that's over gold and silver
and water.
He's selling our resources to the highest bidder. It's happening all over. And the answer is a constitutional answer. The answer is we vote on election day with ballpoint pens, and so many of us show up that they can't out-cheat us, right?
Yes.
Well, Laura, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here today.
God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you, and God bless our listeners.